pals, I'm here today to talk about the Cloak and Dagger Christmas Readathon, which takes place during the month of December. This was created by Kate Howe. It's been running for quite a few years now and I've never participated before but always wanted to. So as soon as I saw Mel's video announcing it from Mel's Bookland Adventures, I very quickly went and picked up some books I'd been interested in that matched the prompts, and I also had a look at Mel's blog because she's done loads of great posts about all the prompts and books that she recommends for each. So there are 9 prompts and there's also a group read. I think I have books for 7 or 8 of the prompts. The first one is the one I'm definitely missing a book from. And I don't know, I'd like to read all 9, but we shall see what happens. The first one, the reason I haven't got a book for it is because it's the prompt that I've sort of read the most books that would fulfil that, I guess, and that is Inspector Bucket, read a Victorian mystery or one set in the Victorian era. So I've read quite a lot of historical fiction set in the Victorian era that has a mysterious element, and I probably will try and pick up a book still for this prompt, but one just hasn't sort of stood out to me, so do feel free to recommend me one below. The next prompt is Gamache, read a mystery with a bilingual detective or set in a village, and I have 3 for this prompt. So funnily enough, before the readathon was announced, I checked quite a few months ago to see if my library had Still Life by Louise and they didn't, but then I checked again a few weeks ago and they had like all the books in the series. So I have Still Life by Louise. This is actually about Inspector Gamache, who this prompt is inspired by. So yeah, this is the first book in a really long running series that's set in Canada. So the detective speaks French and English. I believe this is set in a village. It says the discovery of a dead body in the woods on Thanksgiving weekend brings Chief Inspector Armand Gamache and his colleagues from, I'm not going to pronounce that right, to a small village in the eastern townships. And when I read the first few pages of this when I picked it up from the library, it was cosy than I was expecting it to be. I think I'd thought this was like the sort of dark mystery type novel, but I think it might be a bit cozier than that, so I think this will be a nice one to read around the winter. Then I also have The Appeal by Janice Hallett, which I've heard lots of people talk about and I'm super excited about because this is my Patreon book club read for December. So I'll be filming a spoilery vlog of this one as I read it. And yeah, I love guessing, and I think this is one where there's loads of like emails and multimedia. Yeah, it looks really interesting. It says 1 murder, 15 suspects, can you uncover the truth? It actually says on the back that it's set in a small town, but I mean, that illustration looks like a village on the front to me, so I'm going to count it for this prompt. And then I have a third one, which is one I saw Mel recommend, and I really like the sound of it. It just sounded a little bit different. And that is the first in the series again, A Morbid Taste for Bones by Ellis. This is the first book in the Chronicle of Brother Cadfael. It says, in 1137, the ambitious head of Shrewsbury Abbey has decided to acquire the remains of St Winifred for his Benedictine order. Brother Cadfael is part of the expedition sent to her final resting place in Wales, and they find the villagers passionately divided by the Benedictines' offer for the saint's relic. Canny, wise and all too worldly, Cadfael isn't surprised when the taste for bones leads to bloody murder. So yeah, this is quite a short one. I think it's going to be a really quick read and it just sounds cosy, and I've read so few books set in that time period, so that's exciting. The next one is Tommy and Tuppence, read a book that features a great team. I actually got this book out from the library maybe early this year and I just wasn't feeling in the mood for it, and I really am feeling in the mood to read lots of, I've been reading lots of fast-paced books this month. I've read a few crime books and a few romance, and I'm just in the mood to read lots of quick books and cosy books, and this definitely fulfills that. And I saw that Mel had put this on the blog post for a great team, which I don't think I'd have picked up on myself based on the blurb. That is The Anatomist's Wife by Anna Lee Hubert. This is the first book in the Lady Derby mystery series. This is set in Scotland in 1830. I was thinking I could use this for Victorian, but it's just a little bit too early. So following the death of her husband, Lady Kira Derby has taken refuge at her sister's estate, but basically they all think she's a bit unnatural and weird because she helped with her husband's study of anatomy, which at the time wasn't something that women did. One of the house guests is murdered and her brother-in-law asks her to utilise her knowledge of human anatomy to aid the insufferable Sebastian Gage, a fellow guest with some experience, as an inquiry agent. So yeah, and then they work together. I have no idea if there's also a romantic element to this. Perhaps, so we shall see. I would really like to get to this one. And then the next prompt is to read a mystery with an amateur sleuth. I have two. I have one physically and one that I couldn't get from the library, so I think I'm going to listen to on audio. So the first one I have from the library is actually a YA book, and that's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I've heard Jean from Jean's Book is Thoughts talking about this one, and I've also heard Sabrina talk about this series really recently and say how much she's been enjoying it. And I really like when I pick up YA novels set in the UK, which I feel like I don't do often enough. I feel like a lot of the really popular ones are set in the US. I think actually when this was published in the US, it was rewritten to read as though it was set in America, which I find an interesting publishing choice. But this is about a teenage girl who is writing about a closed case for like a project at school, and then she starts to think that she could probably solve it, and I think things get a little bit dangerous, so I like the sound of that. And then I would also like to read, and again this is one I heard Mel talk about a year or so ago, and I added it onto my Scribd saved list as an audiobook, and that is Blanche on the Lamb by Barbara Neely. Again, this is the first book in a series. Mystery books, a lot of them are in series. It says Blanche White is a plump, feisty, middle-aged African-American housekeeper working for the genteel rich in North Carolina. But when an employer stiffs her and her checks bounce, she goes on the lam, hiding out as a maid for a wealthy family at their summer house. That plan goes awry when there's a murder, and Blanche becomes the prime suspect. So she's forced to use her savvy, her sharp wit, and her old girl network of domestic workers to discover the truth and save her own skin. I think that sounds really interesting, and I'm hoping that it will have a really good audiobook narrator. And then the next prompt is Hercule Poirot. Read a book set in the Golden Age or between 1920 and 1945. Again, I'm sure this is one I heard Mel talk about a couple of years ago, and I've had on my list to pick up since then, and that is The Widows of Malabar Hill by Tsujata Massey. And again, this is the first book in a series called A Mystery of 1920s India. I think that's the name of the series, although it's not very catchy, is it? So we follow Paveen Mystery, Bombay's only female lawyer and its sharpest sleuth in 1921. She's the daughter of a respected family, and she's just joined her brother's law firm. And she's appointed to execute the will of Omar Farid, a wealthy Muslim mill owner who has left behind 3 widows. And because of the time period, I think men aren't allowed to interview these widows, but obviously as a woman Paveen is, so she has a lot more access than other people. So I think this one could be really interesting, and yeah, I'm hoping to really enjoy this. I think this is a cosy mystery as well, and I really like the cover. I think that's a really cool cover. The next prompt is Detective Galileo. Read a translated mystery or one set in a country different from your own. I have a book on hold at the library, but it hasn't come in yet. And that is The Devotion of Suspect X by Keigo Higashino, translated by Alexander O. Smith. This novel is set in Tokyo. We follow Yusuku, who lives a quiet life working in a bento shop, a good mother to her only child. But it says, when her ex-husband appears at her door without warning one day, her comfortable world is shattered. And Detective Kusanagi of the Tokyo police tries to piece together the events of the day. He finds himself confronted by the most puzzling, mysterious circumstances he has ever investigated. Nothing quite makes sense, and it will take a genius to understand the genius behind this particular crime. So yeah, and I, a few years ago, read a few translated Japanese mysteries and really enjoyed them, and they were quite dark and meant to pick up lots more, and have lots on my list of books that I want to read, but just never get around to it. So I'm hoping I'll really enjoy this one and it will pull me to read more. This is actually the third in a series, but I think you can read them out of order, and this is the one I hear people recommend the most, so I'm going to start here. The next prompt is Kinsey Milhone. Read a book with a private investigator, and I've actually read the first 2 books in a series about a private investigator this month, and I read them based on hearing Grace over at GK Reads recommend them, and that is the Roxanne Wary series. So I have books 3 and 4 here, but I will tell you what the first ones are called. So I think the first one was called The Last Place You Look, and the second was called What You Want to See, and I really enjoyed both of them. It does fulfil some of the tropes of like a private investigator, in that Roxanne Ware is like down on her luck. She's clearly got a problem with alcohol, she's out of a messy relationship, but at the same time she's a woman, she's bisexual, so she sort of turns a lot of those tropes on their head while still inhabiting them, and I enjoy the mysteries that she tries to unpick, and I also enjoy the fact that she's like really obsessed and it sort of consumes her life, and yeah, I like her personal story as well. So I borrowed all 4 at the same time, and so I would at least like to read the third one in the December. I'm not sure what this one is about. Oh yeah, she gets a panicked call from her brother that girl he slept with once turned up on his door in a bit of a mess, really panicking, asking for his help, and then she disappeared. And so Roxanne Wary is trying to find out like where she's gone and to make sure that like whatever's happened to her, that her brother isn't implicated. So yeah, that's the premise of this one. And then the last book-based prompt is Flavia de Luce, read a children's mystery or the first book in a series. I mean, I'm reading so many first books in a series, but this one is actually a standalone, and that's a children's book that I got from the library about 6 weeks ago and still haven't read. And I'm really happy that I've left it till December because it works for this readathon, but I think it also might be set during the winter because it looks quite cosy. And that is A Mystery of the Night Watchers by A.M. Home. This is set in 1910 in Suffolk, and Nancy lives with her grandfather and her mother in like a big old house, and she keeps seeing them at night when she watches from the observatory go outside and like leave the property to go do something, and she doesn't know why, and so she's trying to figure that out. So that sounds wonderful. And then the last prompt is to watch a like mystery TV show. I'm not sure what I'll watch yet, but I always watch mysteries, and so I'll definitely get to one, but I'm not gonna like decide now because there's quite a few I'm interested in. And then also there is a group read of Footsteps in the Dark by Georgette Heyer, which is another book I have reserved at my library, so I'll be joining the, I think it's a Zoom, so I do need to add myself to the sort of list of people who are going to be attending, but I think that sounds really good as well. So yeah, I mean there's a lot of books, and I don't think I'll get to all of these unless I just become obsessed with mysteries, but I think I've got a really good selection here. I've got lots of books that I've heard people really recommend as really good places to start in these sort of mystery tropes, and so yeah, I hope that these books will be really enjoyable and they'll get me into like lots of ongoing series. That'd be really exciting. So yeah, let me know if you're going to be taking part in this readathon, if you have any mysteries to recommend, if you've read any of these and you really like them, that would be good to hear, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!